Welcome, and it's good to have you here for this guided meditation and Dharma talk. My name is Jonathan Foust. Thank you so much for making the time to be here. Before we launch, a few quick acknowledgments. First of all, Rita Moran, our mindful movement teacher. You can find more about her class, which precedes this, on my Facebook page and on my website. That's at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, which brings you right up to here, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. Also, a thank you to the Insight Meditation Community of Washington, to our producer, Glenn Harrison, for getting this to you. I have a mailing list sign up if you want little weekly reminders of what's coming up. That's available. Plus, every couple times a year, I send out kind of a whole compendium of talks and all my best photography up to that date. All these live talks or web stream talks are available online through all the major distributors. And finally, this is all offered freely. No paywalls, no commercials, no nothing. The whole idea here is that these practices should be available to all. So if you feel inspired to support me in that, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. All righty. We are going to be exploring this whole idea of how the breath serves in awakening. So we're going to do a short meditation to kind of bring us right up to our talk, where we're going to explore a couple ways that breath can be your home base, how the breath is a mirror of your internal experience, how breath can be a transformational tool, and truly how breath can be a gateway to freedom. So stay tuned, stay present. You might take a few moments, let your body move and stretch in any way that feels good for you. Let out any sounds, any little wiggles you might want to work out. And then when you're ready, you can close your eyes. Just notice as you note right now, what is the effect of closing your eyes? Is there a possibility that you feel a little more present to the inner world? If you would take in a long, deep inhalation and hold the breath, and as you hold the breath, squeeze your hands, your forearms, your biceps, and your triceps. Hold and squeeze. And then exhale, relax all down through the arms, relax your palms, and take a moment just to feel. And then again, if you would, taking a long, deep inhalation, hold the breath, draw your shoulders up toward your ears, and once again, tighten with the fists, the forearms, the biceps, the triceps, the muscles around the shoulder blades. Hold and squeeze, feel the contraction. And then when you're ready, release on the exhalation. Let the shoulders drop. And again, feel down the length of the arms. This contraction release is kind of the essence of yoga. It's conscious contraction and then opening into the space that follows, the letting go. One final time, if you wish. Draw a long, deep inhalation, hold the breath, draw the shoulders up toward your ears, tighten up the fists, forearms, biceps, triceps, muscles around the shoulder blades. Draw the navel in toward the spine. Now hold and squeeze. And when you're ready, with the breath moving out, let the shoulders drop, let the belly soften, and feel again down the length of the arms. Feel the space in the palms. Relax. Sensing now this inner landscape of sensation, and noticing, if you would, where you feel the breath the most predominant right now. And if you would take a few moments just to track the experience of the breath inside, the lengthening on the inhalation, that moment of pause, and then that sense of the breath moving out. And again, the pause in between the breaths. Each breath is a falling away, a letting go. Each breath out is a dying to the past. Each breath in is a new arrival. And if you would, for this next period of time, you might direct your attention to a few options here. First, just notice the feeling of the breath in the nostrils. In particular, you might sense, can you feel the breath at the rim of the nostrils? Can you feel the breath at the septum? Can you sense the movement of the breath through the trachea and in the lungs? And can you feel the breath moving in the belly? Now, can you sense the breath moving through the whole body? So the whole body breathing. And you might now direct your attention to one particular point in this mechanism of the body breathing. The nostrils, the septum, the belly, the whole sense of the body breathing. Let your attention settle here. And let this be your doorway, your portal back to the here and now. Naturally, the mind is going to take over. You'll be lost in thought and narrative and commentary. But every time you notice, bring your attention back to this feeling of the breath on the inside. I'd like to offer a few suggestions or a few pointers for this breath based practice. If your mind is scattered, it can be helpful to count your breaths. Count the inhalations from 1 to 5. If you might try that now if you like. Easy, natural breath, but just counting the inhalations from 1 to 5. Can you feel the effect? Can you feel the imprint? Another pointing out instruction is to explore in great detail everywhere you feel the breath on the inside. If you go to your anchor to the specific point inside, how many sensations can you identify? You may find this to be absorbing. And finally, you might explore the following, which is very subtle. Notice now just the natural flow of breath at the point of your anchor, and explore the following question. Is this inhalation shorter or longer than the inhalation preceding it? As I breathe in, I'm aware of breathing in. As I breathe out, I am aware of breathing out. As my body breathes in long, I'm aware of breathing in long. As my body breathes in short, I am aware of breathing in short. Exploring now if it's possible to relax and soften even more as you hold the breath in the foreground of your attention. And you might explore now dropping the anchor of the breath. Could you relax and soften even more right now? And can you widen your attention now to the perception of everything that's changing? And is it possible to let everything be just as it is, deeply relaxed and at the same time alert and open and allowing? As we come to the close of this meditation, notice the quality of presence right now. Notice anything that may have shifted. And then very gently let your body move and stretch in any way that feels good. Deepen the breath. Take this time now for your transition. Welcome. If you would, take a moment and close your eyes. If you're driving, don't. I'd like to invite you to take one conscious breath. So if you would, on the next inhalation, feel the breath moving in. Hold the breath for a moment. And then slowly exhale. Feel the space between the exhalation and before you inhale. And just for the next 20 seconds, can you identify that moment of pause between the inhalation and the exhalation? And if you like, you can shift your attention from the breath. And the question I'd like to offer is this: what if? What if everything you need for awakening is available in this moment and in this breath? The meditation master Thich Nhat Hanh is quite often quoted as saying, breathing in, I calm the body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is a wonderful moment. I'd like to explore with you this whole idea of how one breath at a time can bring you back to presence, bring you back to steadiness, and bring you back to freedom. I'd like to talk about how you can use breath as a home base, as a way of coming back to the here and now. How breath is a mirror of your mind. How breath can be a tool for transformation, for dramatic transformation, and how breath is a gateway to freedom. So, breath as a home base. Were you ever told to count to 10 before you say something in anger when you were a kid? Well, a Reikian therapist who specializes in breath might say if you take 10 full conscious breaths, really conscious breaths, you might forget about what you were angry about. That's how powerful breath can be for transforming your relationship with the inner world and the outer world. There are a lot of classical teachings from the Buddha on anapanasati. Anapana is breath. Sati means to kind of remember. It's the remembering breath and remembering the present moment through the breath. The breath is a natural anchor. It's a natural tool because it's always with you. If you're not breathing, you don't have to worry about being mindful anymore. As you practice with the breath, it will develop your capacity to observe sensations. It'll develop your capacity to observe emotions and thoughts without grasping and without pushing away. And you might notice how your breath changes when you're, for example, scanning the news headlines these days, as opposed to how you're breathing when you're feeling grateful or feeling happy. So, an inquiry might be helpful to close your eyes. Right now, where do you feel the breath the most predominant inside? And for the next 3 rounds of breath, is it possible to keep all of your attention on the experience of the breath on the inside? And now, what do you feel inside? Could you find a word or two that describes the present moment? Is there a sense of what might have shifted in just 3 breaths? Now, maybe you don't feel any different, but maybe you feel a little more present. The breath is always available. It's always now. And as my good friend Dana Fald says, as many times as your mind may wander, that many times you can begin again. Following the breath will anchor attention in the body. It's this classic tool for present moment awareness. It's not the only anchor for meditation, but it's the classic anchor. And there are a lot of ways you can use the breath. The first is it's intrinsic. It's the inner sensation of breath. The sensation, and might even just sense it right now if you can. Can you feel the passing of the breath at the rim of the nostrils? Can you feel the subtle sensations of breath at the septum? If you bring your attention down deep into the belly, can you feel the movement of the belly as you breathe? Can you feel the whole mechanism of the body as you breathe? Now, there's a really interesting way to practice. And again, intrinsic is the inner experience of the breath. The other way, which is very, very subtle, is the perception of the breath outside your body. And this is pretty wild. If you bring your attention, we'll do this just for a few moments. If you bring your attention to the little patch of skin under your nostrils and you relax, can you feel the breath here? You might perceive the breath as a little cooler on the in breath, a little warmer on the out breath. And now just letting this practice go. I wanted to mention this because it's a really interesting way to practice. It's very, very subtle, but this technique of feeling the breath outside your body becomes a tool for moving deeper and deeper into the concentration practices. But you might notice that mindful breathing regulates your nervous system and it calms your mind. And this is what happens with concentration. It's a calming. Not only does it calm your nervous system and calm your mind at its most esoteric, the experience of each breath is a reminder of impermanence. Each exhalation is, you could say, a death. It's a falling away of everything that's been known. And each inhalation is birth. It's coming into a fresh moment. When you establish awareness in the breath, it brings this sense of home, a place that you can use to return to. And over time, again, over time, you start to develop what's considered the flower of practice, which is equanimity or steadiness. No matter what's happening around you, you are cultivating a sense of deep presence. And as you establish this home base of here and now, alive in sensation with the breath as your portal, you can start to notice more deeply. And this is where you begin to recognize how your breath is a perfect mirror of your mind. I have a good friend who manages a very large charter school. It's a very inspiring place. They support economically challenged kids. Their whole focus is getting them into college. And he sends me these videos of seniors who are opening what might be their acceptance letters or the acceptance emails. And the whole family's there quite often. It's incredibly emotional. And as they're opening the email or the letter, I've noticed that while they're doing this, absolutely no one is breathing. How you breathe is how you feel. You might take a moment and just check in with your breath. What's the quality of your breath right now? Is it shallow? Is it ragged? Is it full? Is it smooth? What I've noticed is that when I am in deep reactivity, when I'm angry, when I'm upset, my breath is compromised in some way. I'm not breathing full, I'm not breathing smooth. Times when I am breathing smooth and breathing deep and breathing relaxed, chances are I'm much more present. So how you breathe will reflect your mood. It'll reflect your tension level. It'll reflect your vitality. And mindfulness of breath, when you really start to pay attention to it, is going to reveal your conditioned patterns. Immediate direct feedback. Watching your breath, just noticing how your body is spontaneously breathing will train you in mindfulness or non-judgmental awareness. It will provide you a feedback system. Awareness, regulation, and then presence. So in classic meditation, the breath is unrestricted and free-flowing, and you train yourself to observe. You'll notice how your breath fluctuates, and then you train yourself to ride the fluctuations. The classic instruction from the Satipatthana Sutta, thousands of years ago. When breathing in long, know I breathe in long. When breathing out short, know I breathe out short. You're watching the breath in the moment happening spontaneously, uncontrolled. And you'll notice there are times when it's long, times when it's short, times when it's suspended. But the most important thing to remember here is how your breath is truly the most honest friend you have. It will never lie about your state. And when you begin to see clearly how you're breathing and how you're experiencing life, you can begin to transform. You can begin to change. And there's a very important distinction here, which is the distinction between observation of the breath and the power that comes when you control the breath. And this is where breath can be a powerful tool for transformation. If you've done any training in yoga, you've probably been trained in some forms of what's called pranayama or pranayam. The word prana is energy. The word yama implies control. So you're controlling energy by controlling your breath. Perhaps the most classic example of how controlling the breath can be useful is the practice of what's called box breathing, where you inhale to the count of 4, hold for the count of 4, exhale for the count of 4, and then hold out for the count of 4. And in order to do this technique, you've got to really concentrate. So you've got to push away all the external stuff in order to do this technique. Now, here's one of the ways it's used, and this example is not the most wholesome, but it's incredibly practical. Imagine you're on a battlefield. There's chaos all around you, and your job is to focus. This technique, this pranayam technique, is taught to snipers to develop laser focus in incredibly distracting environments. And you may find when you do this technique, it has a way of bringing your attention directly and immediately into the here and now. So I'd like to guide you through this just for a minute or two. And before we begin this technique, I just want to offer the following. First, don't strain. If at any time this breath feels uncomfortable, just drop the technique. You might start again. Holding the breath out can feel a little bit weird, a little bit challenging for some people. And it can take some time to kind of settle into the rhythm because it can feel like a natural kind of way of breathing. But if you'd like to try it on, you might close your eyes. Take a few moments just to kind of feel your breath once again. And then, if you would, just begin to lengthen the inhalation to the count of 4, and then right into the exhalation to the count of 4. Now, this technique unto itself, breathing into the count of 4 and exhaling to the count of 4, is another pranayama technique. It's also called coherent breathing. And you'll notice if you do this for just a minute or so, again, there's a very powerful way of focusing your mind and calming the nervous system in the mind. Now, if you would, exhale fully and then inhale to the count of 4, hold for the count of 4, exhale to the count of 4, hold out for the count of 4. Inhale to the count of 4, hold for the count of 4, exhale to the count of 4, hold out for the count of 4. And now on your own, we'll do 2 more rounds of this breath. As you're ready, completing with the exhalation. And now take a moment to deeply relax and sense if you can feel or register the impact of this technique. Noting what might have shifted for you, whatever it might be, this quality of here and now. And if you like, you can open the eyes. The question becomes, how can mindfulness of breath help you in moments of difficulty? There's been a huge amount of science on the study of breath and different techniques of controlling the breath. One of the most powerful ways of shifting, and Andrew Huberman talks about this as one of the most transformational techniques to remember, a very, very powerful way to change your state, is what he calls the psychological sigh. But if you would, first let's do this. Imagine that you've got a straw and you're sipping through a straw. So your lips are pursed. Taking a long, deep breath and then exhale through the pursed lips. And again, a slow breath in, exhaling through pursed lips. So here's the physiological sigh. It's 2 sharp inhalations. So you're filling the lungs with air, drawing the breath out onto your collarbones, and then that slow exhalation through pursed lips. So it's like this. So if you would try it, 2 sharp inhalations, exhaling through pursed lips. And then 1 more, 2 sharp inhalations, exhaling through pursed lips. Take a moment to relax with the breath out. Just let the breath be free floating, free flowing. And again, just feel, sense if you can register the imprint. And now let's try this with a quiet inhalation. So a long, slow inhalation through the nose, if you like. And then exhale as if you're exhaling through a straw. And then one more. Just feel everything you can feel on the inside. And then release the technique. Just relax and feel. Can you find a word or two that describes whatever you're sensing inside? And again, if you'd like, you can open the eyes if they're closed, or you can remain with them closed. Now, lengthening the exhalation activates the parasympathetic rest response. Anytime you lengthen the exhalation, you're kind of invoking kind of relaxation. It's also a very powerful technique for helping you to fall asleep. It's my number one technique. It's a nice full deep inhalation, and then, and I won't necessarily do the straw breathing, but I'll do a lengthened exhalation as I just sort of sense into the body. So these are just a couple techniques of how control of your breath can shift your state. Control of your breath can interrupt reactivity. Control of the breath can dramatically shift a scattered mind into a focused mind. And over time, with practice, you can begin to rewire your response to stress. Just one breath is calling attention back into the here and now. Each breath offers a choice to either react to the moment or kind of awaken to the moment, how you're responding to it. And so you really have two choices. You can control your breath and dramatically change your state, or you can rest in natural breath and notice how transformation kind of ripens into freedom when you rest in awareness itself. I've noticed for myself there are times when control of the breath is incredibly skillful, and then times when controlling the breath can be helpful, but it's not really kind of liberating in the broader sense. So I'd like to talk about how is it that awareness of breath can be a gateway to freedom. I've had the profound privilege a number of times in my life of sitting with someone dying. And it's a fascinating thing to see as you get toward the end, the body really takes over the breath. The breath becomes kind of labored because the energy system is doing everything it can to kind of preserve the brain. And then I've also noticed or sensed, or maybe more truthfully, just imagined as they're with the breath, how they're meeting each breath with awareness. And ultimately, as we're in this practice of falling away, we meet each breath with acceptance. Each breath out is a dying away. The Buddha's last words, allegedly, were all conditioned things are impermanent. The recognition that everything that arises out of causes and conditions is subject to change, which opens us up to what is it that doesn't change. So, one of the most powerful techniques in meditation is this abandonment of controlling the breath and resting in the awareness of breath without trying to change anything. So, again, you might just take a moment if you like. If you do not try to control your breath at all, what do you feel? What do you notice? The more you practice anapanasati, this breath-based meditation, the more you will notice how coming back to the simplicity of the body breathing by itself will enhance your capacity to recognize impermanence, to recognize how everything is changing. You'll notice how every breath, when you're really in the breath, will dissolve a sense of clinging and identification. And you'll notice how each breath is a microcosm of birth and death. Can you imagine right now your exhalation as a falling away, as a dying to everything you know? So while controlling the breath is a powerful way to change your state, in the practice of anapanasati, the freedom is not in controlling the breath, but in resting with the breath. One breath at a time, you can remember who you truly are as awareness itself. And this sense of awake awareness, it's not an idea, it becomes a lived reality. So, in these final moments, can you sense how awareness of this breath is a way of coming home? How, as you observe how you breathe, it becomes this immediate mirror of how you are relating to your world. How the breath can be this honest friend to reveal your experience of the moment. And you might sense how, at times, controlling your breath can be a powerful way of shifting your state, a powerful and dramatic way to willfully come into presence, either gathering focus or cultivating relaxation. And how resting with the breath can become this gateway to freedom. So if you like, you can close your eyes. Just a short reflection. Back to the initial question I offered. What if liberation and freedom is as close as your next breath? Can you imagine, as you move forward in your life, returning again and again to the breath? One breath at a time, one moment at a time. Thank you so much for your time and attention. May you move through your life with breath as your friend and breath as a liberating factor in your life. Take good care.